Hello, 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 beautiful community. I hope that you are doing well whenever you are watching this live. It is wonderful to be with you. My name is Jackie Boyd. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I have the honor and pleasure of being the owner of the Care Plan. Based in Chicago, Illinois, we provide care planning, care navigation services from an LGBTQ plus perspective. And we also support organizations with creating cultures of care. So that means that we work with organizations to do internal trainings, to support their leadership, executive coaching, and a number of other services to support healthy and happy organizations. Hi, great to see you. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful to have you with us. Hi, Aisha. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday evening. Tonight, I'm really excited because we have a very special guest. Tracy is going to be joining us. And Tracy and I connected about 2 months ago. Tracy happens to be a paralegal and also like an extraordinary caregiver. So we're going to be talking about estate planning in Black communities, what it means for us, why we need to be thinking about this, and how to make sure that we can bring our families and loved ones along on the journey with us, because that's oftentimes a stopper. Hey, Aisha. Hi, Tinu. Love to you both. My Femme Collective. How we living? How we doing? Would love to hear in the chat how folks are today. And if you have specific questions for Tracy or myself as we talk about estate planning, caregiving, and everything in between. One announcement that I want to be sure everybody's aware of is that tomorrow night is our third installment of Comparing Notes. For those of you who aren't aware, Comparing Notes is a leadership circle that we have developed designed for leaders who identify as being LGBTQ plus or Black, Brown, Indigenous, folks of color. So we wanted to create a space where leaders who often are moving forward without much support, without much community, can come together, get to know other folks, get peer support, and also get inspired. So our topic tomorrow night is going to be motivation. We're going to be talking about motivating ourselves, motivating our teams, and the role that motivation plays in leading an organization or a team. So hi, everybody. Great to be with you. How are you all doing? I'm so glad that you're here this evening. Hi, Martina. Great to see you. Oh, Aisha, you said you just left an appointment where you utilized some of my tips. Thank you so much. Always, we got to protect ourselves out here, y'all. And the healthcare system moves fast. It moves very, very quickly. And oftentimes we can feel like we're being left behind. So great to see you all. Tracy, whenever you are ready, my friend, please hit that request to join button, and I will be so glad to bring you on board. All right, everybody, we're being too quiet in the chat. What's happening? How you living? How's your February going? What is going on with everybody? So thanks for being here. Really grateful to have you as part of our community. For folks who may be new, I'm Jackie Boyd, pronouns she, her, they, them, and I'm the founder of the Care Plan. Grateful to be here with you this evening. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about estate planning, we typically do something around advanced directives or estate planning around this time of year. And it's because the beginning of the year is a great time to sort of set those big picture goals. And oftentimes, whether it's for ourselves or a loved one, estate planning, advanced directives, putting down our wishes, it can be a big conversation and a big task to accomplish. So that's why I like to talk about it at the beginning of the year. We've gotten through the holiday season. We are thinking about, new year, new us, and getting our legal and financial matters in hand is really part of that process. So really excited to have Tracy with us tonight. And Tracy's handle is Caregiving with Me. Follow Tracy after this. And she should be joining us just now. So stay with us, everybody, and be thinking about all those questions. Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
It is so good to see you. Thank you so, so much for joining us this evening.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
All right. So I was talking a little bit about why we discuss estate planning here at the beginning of the year. Um, as care managers and care navigators, it's always on our minds, right? Every client we work with, we want to be sure that they have those documents in place. But
Yes,
frankly, it's a more fun conversation to have with somebody else and to have a couple perspectives on. So thank you for being that person. I
you're
appreciate you
very
very much.
welcome. No problem at all.
Do you mind starting by sharing just a little bit about yourself, who you are, how you came to um, the legal field, anything that you want folks to know about you?
Absolutely. So I started off well, I'm Tracy. I live in Houston, Texas, and I am caregiving for my mother, who is 75. She has Alzheimer's. She I'm again an only child, and in the course of the caregiving journey, estate planning has come across the table. So, my background is in legal, and I am a corporate paralegal, but I'm also a mobile notary. And in the context of being a mobile notary, I have gone to hospitals, nursing homes, residential facilities, hospices, anywhere, even truck stops and gas stations and parking lots, notarizing documents. Now, I've been a notary for 14 years. And since I've had my business since 2011, I have come across countless experiences of loved ones literally on their deathbed attempting to sign their last will and testament or their durable power of attorney. And I'm like, this is something that we need to address while we're healthy, while we're young. We all have to go. I always make a joke and I say, if Prince left, we all have to go. So we all want to go ahead and prepare ourselves.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And that's, especially the last couple years with even like very famous people in our community
Yes,
having left this world without their estates in place.
yes,
I remember when Prince passed, when Aretha passed, I was like, what a crime. It's almost criminal that like these things were not in place
exactly.
because you don't work your whole life to have everything then tied up in the courts and your family in knots for four
Yes,
years because it can take a long time to deal with probate.
absolutely. And
Those things,
it's very costly.
yeah, I think most people don't understand that. And you're in a different state than we are in Illinois. The estimates I've heard in terms of like, if you don't have a will, at least, if you like, say bare minimum, and y'all
Mhm.
don't worry, we're going to get into what all these documents are. But even if you don't have a will, so that it's not clear to the state where you want your assets to go, minimum it's going to cost somebody $4,000 to move your case through court, through probate,
Yes.
to then have the decisions be made and have it be resolved and your estate settled. What's your estimate in your area?
That's about the going range as well. And that, so let me address this really quick. A lot of people feel like that they don't need to have a will because they don't have assets. This plant is my asset. I don't want my plant to go to Shanita. I want my plant to go to Tito, my puppy. So this is why you have to put every single thing, anything tangible. That's why you have to put it in a will. And I think that's a part of the issue. And so in Texas, well, in Harris County, we have one of our bar associations, excuse me, they actually do free wills, free estate planning for seniors, for low income individuals, for um, military and, service members alike. So you can have whatever, just something on paper and it's free. Or you can see an attorney, and I've seen wills done drafted for as low as $85. That's literally a pound of crab legs, or in Houston at least. So for the cost of one Friday night on the town, you literally can have your wishes drafted on paper. I would rather pay $85 than 4,000 any day of the week.
Same, same. And have the peace of mind to know it's taken care of
Yes.
instead of, like who's going to handle it? Especially if you're, I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I'm single. I don't have biological children. Like there's not a natural place for the court to say, oh, here's where things are going to go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So let's back it up because Anne, who's a frequent viewer of our Instagram lives and a good friend, mentioned, you know, it's so much a head game. Like people don't want to face the fact that they will actually pass away. So let's talk about that a minute because I do run into that quite often in my work. I
Mhm.
imagine that you have too.
Yes.
What do you think are some of the reasons for that? And any ideas about how people can kind of get their minds around this in a more positive way?
So, what I think, so I am a millennial. I was born in the 80s. My mother had me later in life. She is a baby boomer. So, a lot of it is simply education, wholeheartedly across the board. Back in the day with the baby boomers, they felt like, again, if they didn't have any assets, there was no reason. Or in my mother's case, she feels like because I'm an only child, everything automatically goes to me. Well, anyone that has access to the internet, social media, or TV, they understand. For Prince, Aretha, even Luther, you have people come all out of the woodworks and say, you know, oh, that's my uncle, oh, that's my dad. So if you simply put it on paper, you're listing who your children are, or you're
Mhm.
listing who your next of kin is. That way, you are not only giving them the assurance that you're wanting to honor your word by saying, I want to leave this specific thing to you, or these specific things to you. You have it documented. So there's nothing that can be contested. And no matter how many ways I attempt to explain it to, or have attempted to explain to my mother before she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that just because I'm an only child, I know it, you know it, but the court doesn't know it. And now I have to prove to the court that I'm your only child, that there are no other children. So a lot of it is simply education. Now, as far as the second part of your question, I believe that we as children, nieces, nephews, even uncles, we need to, aunts and uncles, we need to really sit and have that hard conversation. And like I said, I always use the analogy of like, look, y'all, Prince is gone, so I'm going to be going to. We all have to go. We all have to go, and it's just so much easier. Like I said, and how I phrased it to my aunt who is single and no children, it was kind of manipulative. I was like, why would you intentionally? So you have to put some action words in there also. Why would you intentionally want to inflict additional pain on me? I'm already sad that you're gone.
Mhm.
Now you're putting me in a worse position because now I have to find $4,000 that I may or may not have. I have to take away
Yeah.
from my vacation fund or possibly my 401k just to simply prove something that you could have did by simply filling out a sheet of paper and putting your John Hancock on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're getting a lot of, I appreciate that
Absolutely.
perspective about, you know, because it really comes down to choice.
Yes.
But if you haven't had education around it, I think that's so true. And only a third of Americans anyway have their estate plans done. And so whether you're a baby boomer or millennial, you know, none of us are getting an A on this. You know, and in black communities, I feel like Ashley, to your point, and to your point, one, folks are like afraid of the conversation.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of superstition that
Mhm.
happens in our community where it's like, don't look at it, don't look at death, or you're like kind of inviting it.
Yes.
And two, we also have the respect lines between
Mhm.
elders and younger people.
Yes.
So if we as younger people are kind of pushing to say,
Mhm.
hey mom, hey dad, hey grandma, hey grandpa, like, is this in order? Then
Mhm.
it can feel like an overstep. So those are some of the things that I think are like specific to our community that we have
Definitely.
to look at and get creative about overcoming.
Definitely. And
And I
another
want
way that
to,
I did, I'm sorry, another
no,
way
go for
that
it.
I addressed the situation with my aunt because I'm single, no kids. She's single, no kids. So I'm like, look, I'm auntie status. I'm rich auntie status. We are both rich aunties at this point. So, you know, um, we need to do this for each other. Now, by the universal law, the elders are supposed to go before the kids. But statistically, the caregiver goes before the
Mm-hmm.
patient.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the unfortunate event that I would go before my mother would go, or if I would go before you, now I've given you these tools in place to act not only as my agent, but now my mother's agent.
Yep. Yep. And that's really, especially in Black communities, because I've done a lot of research and training around diverse communities and what
Hmm.
happens in our communities with caregiving. What you're saying is absolutely true. In
Yes,
Black communities, we provide the highest, most complex care in a home setting. So
definitely.
we're doing heavier duty responsibilities at home than any other community. And so it's important for us to be aware of the toll that can take and how important this is, not just for the folks we're looking at, for the
Yeah,
older generation, but for ourselves too.
definitely.
So let me share, just at least from my practice, some of the ways that I work with folks around this. And y'all, thank you so much for your comments in the chat. All of this is really helping the conversation to be as useful as possible. But one of the things that I've noticed in terms of that respect line
Hmm.
is that you can't go too fast,
Definitely.
right? And so, Anne, in the chat, you were saying, I'm tired of like begging my people to get this together. I find that it is helpful to plant a seed
Yes.
and to figure out what their priorities are, right? Some folks, sure, you can just say, hey, mom, dad, I think this would be a good idea. Can we get this in place? It is very rare, but there might be people out there that are like, yes, absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. Most people are going to be like, why are you asking me this? Do you think I'm dying? How dare you? That's not your role. And I don't want to be a burden to you, right? That's like from an elder perspective, oftentimes what comes to the forefront is don't worry about it. I don't want you to be concerned. I don't want you to have to deal with this. But what I've seen work is to plant the seed and
Yeah.
keep putting it in terms that they care about, right? So with your aunt, you said, hey, we're both rich aunties. Let's take care of this. Let's like make sure our wishes are respected.
Hmm.
With your parents or your grandparents, you might have to make it about you, right? That piece of, hey, I know that you love me and I love you. And not a one of us on this earth is going to escape death. It's just not going to happen. So I want to be sure that I'm crystal clear about your wishes, that there's no family drama or family fights that happen. And I'm not asking to have this conversation now, but I'm going to ask that we put this conversation for a month or two from now. So just think about your wishes, think about what you're comfortable sharing, what you're not comfortable sharing. But I'm going to circle back so that I'm doing right by you and
Yeah.
you're doing right by me, right? It's amazing how much just that seed planting can help people get used to the idea and kind of turn it around in their minds and then
Hmm.
come to the conversation from a more reasonable place instead of that combative place that I don't know, I've seen a lot of folks, approach this from a you should
Hmm.
or you need to, and that's not effective in my experience. How about yours?
It really depends on the dynamic. For one, I can definitely say that. What Houston is the most diverse city in the nation, so they say, which I can definitely agree. So I've come across all sorts of nationalities here, and the foundation of what I see across the board is about the family dynamic, from patient to caregiver. How that foundation is laid and their history together, it helps or it hinders the process of it happening. Even the conversation happening. And like you said, plant the seed. Someone can come back and water the seed. Someone can come back and harvest the seed. So, another way that I think we can kind of address the situation is kind of sad in a way, but anytime there's a funeral of someone that was close to you or in the family, we hear it all the time. Oh, such and such died without life insurance, such and such died, and now, they're in there taking things out of the house. Why would you want that option to happen to you? You
Mm-hmm.
can alleviate all of that by simply having a will, having an advance directive, having this or having that. So it's an uncomfortable conversation for me, and I understand that it's an uncomfortable situation or conversation for you. But I feel like if we go ahead and establish what you want, then I can make sure with everything in me that I can honor your wishes. But I have to know those wishes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's so important in these conversations to remember that you have some time, right?
Yeah,
You don't if you wait till the last minute, but
right.
it can feel so urgent that
Mm-hmm.
I think that fear that we have as that younger generation or that sole caregiver or that person that's just trying to like, please don't leave me this mess,
Right.
like, or I want you to be protected. And I know that, this court system isn't out here to protect you. Like that, our urgency can increase their anxiety and stress.
Definitely.
So I find that for us, if you're trying to have this conversation with somebody, please come with your most pleasant self, come with your most calm self. Don't come with your agenda because it's collaborative. It is collaborative to make these decisions, to think it through, and to make these plans. So and thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Appreciate all your comments and thank you everybody who's with us. We're talking about estate planning and in particular in Black communities. And we're starting with like how do you have the conversation because that's oftentimes the stopping point. And so far we've talked about think about the other person's priorities and triggers and like put it in their language, right? We're powerful single aunties. We want to get this right. We want to leave stuff to our nieces and nephews and organizations we care about. Let's get this done together.
Yes.
Or, with my parents, I'll be very, very honest. I've been talking with my parents about this since I was 12 years old. Only 3 years ago did they actually get the pen to paper and get the paperwork done.
Yes.
And it finally was because I said to my dad, I was like, we can see what's happening with my mom's health. We can see
Right.
where this is going. She's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be decisional forever. And whatever her wishes are, we need to put on paper now
Mm-hmm.
because no day is promised when you have, the condition she has. And that for him was the trigger that finally turned the key. That was like, okay, I don't want to think about it for myself, but
Mm-hmm.
in the bounds of this marriage, I want to be responsible and make sure I'm making the right decisions for my wife
Right.
and for her to be able to be part of that. So, find the language, think about your loved one, what they care about, what they don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
and like put your words in terms that they care about. We also talked about planting the seed, right? And this is funny how this works because I think that our systems are so disjointed. There's not like one place people go to for this. If people are proactive, they're calling attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
If they are at risk, their doctors are starting to talk to them about some of the estate planning. The doctors aren't going to talk about wills. That's legal and financial. If you have a
Exactly.
good financial advisor, they may mention it to you. But it's not, ideally, I wish that we all talked about this with our doctors because that's where people go for that authority, to be
Mm-hmm.
like, what should I be doing? But that's not our system. So if you feel confused, if you're like, why didn't anybody talk to me about this? Please know that's why. It's kind of nobody's responsibility. And you have to be pretty proactive to find
Yeah.
these resources on your own. So, Tracy, would you please talk us through from your perspective, both as a caregiver and as a paralegal, what are, when we say estate planning, what are we talking about? What are we actually talking about? What documents do people need from your perspective?
Well, all of the documents are important. So, again, I am located in the state of Texas. So, in the state of Texas, an estate planning package consists of a last will and testament, a statutory durable power of attorney, a medical power of attorney, an advance directive, a declaration of guardianship, a let's see, transfer deed on death, a disposition of remains. There's three other documents that I can't necessarily think of right off the top of my head, and I don't have my notes with me.
That's a
But
lot more than we have in Illinois. Y'all are
exactly,
already ahead of the curve.
it's so state specific. It's so state specific. But the absolute three top documents that I would say that anyone should have across the board would be the statutory durable power of attorney, which allows the principal or the patient to assign an agent or co-agent, one, two, or more, the power to act out business needs, nothing medical. So, access to the bank account to pay bills, the ability to speak on that person's behalf, to talk to the water company, or to perhaps buy or sell some land, um, or to anything, any type of business that the principal has. That person has to have a power of attorney. A medical power of attorney, which is separate from the durable power of attorney. When your loved one is incapacitated, then you have been designated as the medical power of attorney to make medical decisions on behalf of your loved one. There's also an advance directive. So the medical power of attorney and the advance directive can kind of sort of be considered one and the same. The difference is the advance directive is the actual loved one putting their wishes down on paper, stating, if I'm in an terminal condition such as cancer, you can designate whether you want life support or not. I can say that in my personal experience as well as in my professional experience, out of all the documents, that one document alone is the hardest for anyone to fill out. And literally, I see hundreds of clients a year, and some people want to fill it out, some people don't. So it's, I always tell people, it's your decision. Please, I really can't make the decision for you, but it's better to have and not need than need and not have. So if you're going through an attorney, go ahead and have the document drawn up. You can always fill it out. You can always redact it, but it's simply great to have. So if your loved one or yourself, you're not comfortable filling out the advance directive, not a problem. Be sure to have that medical power of attorney on file. And again, that is for when you're incapacitated, you're in surgery, you may need a pint of blood. Anything can happen. That's when the medical power of attorney activates so that person can make that decision on your behalf.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And some of the same tracks in Illinois. In Illinois, I would absolutely say having your will,
Mm-hmm.
having your power of attorney for estate, and power of attorney for person
Yeah.
or healthcare power of attorney. Those are
Mm-hmm.
kind of the three documents equivalent here in Illinois versus Texas.
Yeah.
And just so folks know, powers of attorney, again, it's very state specific, but in Illinois, they accept powers of attorney from other states. That may or may not be the case in your state. So I always suggest, like, if you've moved your loved one or if you've moved, get a local attorney to update those documents so you're sure that you have the right documents in place for the state that you're in. For that, the there's a lot of other forms in Illinois too that your physician or hospital may want to have on file, but those are still the core three: power of
Mm-hmm.
attorney for person or for health, power of attorney for estate, finances, as Tracy discussed, and then your will. You can get these done, as Tracy had said. There's oftentimes local agencies that will work with folks for whom hiring an attorney would be just a cost that they can't absorb. In Chicago, the Center for Elder and Disability Law, I put their name in the chat. They're a great resource. And if you're part of an organization, they will even come out to have legal clinics about powers of attorney and help people sign paperwork.
Yes.
So there might be local resources in your area like that. There's also attorneys, that the cost range, y'all, the cost range between what an attorney will charge you. I know, Tracy, you said you've seen like $85. I have not seen that low in Chicago, but typically I tell folks expect anywhere from like 1,200 and up, depending on the attorney, their years in business, and the size of your estate and assets, and what they're going to be doing for you.
Right. And I think that's so
Um,
important to mention, with the $85 attorney, that's, you may have a car, something
mhm.
very simple, very basic. But of course, the more assets you have, the thicker the document is, the more research that has to be done, which of course that increases the price.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have a few other questions, but I just wanted to give folks one other pathway to getting your documents done. So we talked about going to like a clinic or a local nonprofit that does it, hiring an attorney. In the state of Illinois, you can also execute your own documents if you have the at least the will and the financial power of attorney notarized. So Tracy was saying, talking about her experience as a mobile notary. Mobile notaries in Chicago are right around $100, $200 to have come out and notarize your materials if you have an elder or someone in your life who can't leave the house. And so just know that you can do these at very different price points. Free, $100 to $200 range, and 1200 and above if you can afford an attorney. And I always recommend you know, if you have any kind of complications, like you own property, you have kids, you have a contentious family, you don't have anybody, and you want to clarify where things should go, hire an attorney if you can at all possible, because then you're sure that you have all the protections that you need. Um, but yeah, I have clients who, print off the paperwork online, discuss it with their family as a group, hire a notary to come out, sign the paperwork, good to go. Good to go. And it's always better to have something than nothing.
Amen.
So for us millennials, it might be like, let me do my own first, or let me use LegalZoom, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a couple years, when I got some more coin, I'll get an attorney. So there's a couple questions that I think you might be a little bit better positioned to answer.
Okay.
Um, what if you were told you were on a will? How do you check the documents after they have passed?
Ooh, that is, I would need a little bit more information. Um, so, some states require, as soon as the will is executed, to be filed, meaning it's been signed and notarized to be filed with the state. Some states require the will to be presented upon death. So that is really state specific. Um, what I would definitely maybe say, just general, is for that person to maybe have a conversation with the principal or the individual that has the will to simply ask and just approach it in a inquisitive way without wanting to be overbearing. Hey, I just want to know, I'm not asking for what you're leaving me. I just want to know, am I included? And it's nothing wrong with having that conversation.
Yeah. And if because with Tinu, she and I are friends, and there's like, I might have a little bit more of the context here, but, you know, sometimes somebody passes and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know you were on the will.
Right.
And so a pathway I would think is to get in touch with the executor,
Mm-hmm.
right? The person who has been identified as the person who will basically wrap up all of those financial pieces, close all the bank accounts, disperse the money to folks it should go to. So if you're not sure, get in touch with those next people, right? Like, is there a son, a daughter, a power of attorney, somebody that was making decisions before they passed? That's going to be the easiest way. And then, like Tracy said, state to state, you can look in your state and see if those wills have to be on file. But I'd imagine there'd be a lot of bureaucracy to get your hands on that. It's not easy to get your hands on someone else's will, um, as it shouldn't be, right? Because
Right.
people can make modifications and put all kinds of stuff on them. So,
Absolutely.
Tina, you and I can talk a little bit more about this offline, but best practice, reach out to the executor of the estate. There is a person that is designated to handle all of that business post death. And if you don't know that person, if you can't get in touch, I've also reached out to clients' attorneys to say, hey, do you have this will on file? Do you know where this is at? Get a status update. In Illinois, for people that pass without family, without anybody to act as that executor, we have a public administration department that does this specifically, that acts as that executor and would be able to tell you, hey, you're part of the will, you're going to get, this inheritance, this, that, or the other. So the state has mechanisms to be sure there is someone in place that has that knowledge and has that information Typically, it's going to be the executor, the attorney, or, like I said, a government agency in this state.
So, one last thing that I wanted to add to that, and this is saying just do your due diligence. In Texas, at times where a document has been contested and the court may not be able to reach a certain individual, such as a beneficiary or whatever the case may be, they'll put out a public notice in your local newspaper. So the local newspaper is also a great resource to use.
That's a great point. And Tina, you're asking some follow-up questions like, is it easy to find out who the power of attorney is? Nope. Nope, it's not necessarily easy. It all takes a little bit of digging, typically. And we can talk more offline if there's a specific situation, because like Tracy's saying, it's often state specific. But no, it's not easy to find people's like powers of attorney are not kept in a public space.
Mm-hmm.
Wills typically are not kept in a public space. You know, they're in people's drawers or on your lawyer's shelf or in your doctor's file. So it's not easy to get access to that unless you are a power of attorney or proven that you're a beneficiary.
Right.
There's another question in here, which is a great question. We love your questions all. We got about 20 minutes left. So if you have any other questions about estate planning, please, please, please put them in the chat. We want to be helpful. Corey asked, if someone passes without a will, does their estate default to their spouse or children? And what if they're not legally married or domestic partnered? So if someone passes without a will, what happens to the estate?
That's why it's important to get the will, girl or guy. So, what happens is whoever is the next of kin, the legal next of kin, has to reach out to an attorney and pay for what's called an heirship affidavit. So the attorney has to draw up an heirship affidavit, and it is now your responsibility, and I'm only speaking for the state of Texas because every state will vary. It is now your responsibility to locate two individuals who knew your relationship to the decedent. And there's going to be a series of questions that that person will have to answer, as far as they knew this person for, I think, a minimum of 10 years in the state of Texas. Don't quote me. Also, this person had X amount of kids. This person, I know this person from school, church, work, wherever the case may be. And from that point, you have to get it done in Texas from two separate individuals, and then you have to petition the court for this heirship affidavit to be granted to you. Very costly, very time consuming. Get the will signed.
And for those of you who couldn't hear, Tracy said, get the will
Get
filed.
the will signed.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, and that's where these court costs come in, y'all.
Yes.
So, you know, if you have a loved one that's being kind of resistant, you may want to talk them through the specifics of this. That, like, you know, I know you don't want it to be a burden. I know that you don't want me to have to think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
But by not making choices, we are making choices. And those choices are going to equal $4,000+ of our money as the younger generation, just to sort it out and fight it out in court. And I know that from who you are and have been our whole lives, that's not the legacy you want to leave, and that's not how you want us to behave, you know.
Definitely.
So it really is important to get those things done ahead of time. And I love that question. The other comment that I'll make is that in Illinois, whether we're talking about the will or those powers of attorney, like say you don't have a power of attorney, it's a similar process to what Tracy described, where the doctor or the court, in order to get some of these decisions made, is going to go basically by next of kin. So are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have living siblings or parents? And then it'll move on from there to like step kids, step grandkids, friends, close friends. And there's a very specific list that you can find on the state of Illinois website that lays that out. But for the low cost of free, you can have your power of attorney for person done. And in Illinois, for the power of attorney for a state, you do need that notary. But all of these are, I think about this all the time because I have so many friends
Hmm.
that have that same feeling you had, Tracy, that like, I don't have an estate. I think a state has a specific, we think of like a big home and land and, a lot of holdings and feeling wealthy.
Hmm.
An estate is literally a bank account. It's
Yeah,
literally your work check. It is literally your car, your condo, your clothes, your everything that you have counts as your estate.
definitely.
So, if you're one of those people that's like, oh, I don't have enough, I don't have anything, it's not worth it, it'll be fine, my money will go to whoever, it'll get there on its own. That's not, you're leaving choice on the table, and you're
Hmm.
leaving choice in a way that continues to keep our people poor, right? Like the wealth gap in this country
Yes.
for Black folks is massive, massive. There's about $110,000 difference in household income
Hmm.
between Black and white families in this country, let alone talking about home ownership.
Hmm.
So, if we really want to turn the tide and think about future generations, this is also about intergenerational wealth. It's
Definitely.
also about how we as queer people may want to live into our legacy, right? I may be a single person, but I got a lot of little nephews and nieces that I want to take care of, and organizations I believe in that I want to leave anything I might have to. So you have things that you care about, and you're watching this, so you care at least a little bit. So both Tracy and I want to encourage you, please, please, please take the
Please.
time to prioritize yourself, your well-being, and get those documents in order.
Definitely.
Anything else you want to share, Tracy, before we transition into talking about caregiving?
I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, I do want to make mention of one thing, and I understand that. And I am not an attorney, and I'm not providing legal advice. But what I can say is, a lot of people are familiar with the legal documents at like the office supply stores, the big box office supply stores. People need to understand that those documents are generalized for 50 states. They're not generalized for your specific state. So, and I understand that finances are, a hot topic for everyone, especially, 2 years into the pandemic. But if you're going to invest some type of money, invest in your will, please. That is, I get that question asked all the time. If I just had to choose one document to have an attorney draw up, what would it be? It would be the will. And a lot of people, they don't know that some attorneys will accept payment plans, because for one, it keeps them out of court by you being proactive to go ahead and have all of the documents drawn up. So just speak to your attorney, speak about financial assistance if you need it. And depending on your situation, like I said, you may even very well be able to get it done at free or a very low cost. So it's definitely worth the investment in taking the time to do the research and just seeing what options are there out there for you. And then we have some states here, including Texas, that are like that accept common law marriage, excuse me. So um, it's considered a domestic partnership. So if the state recognizes it as a domestic partnership, excuse me, um, going back to that previous question, that may, cause some rift there because there's an adult child that thought that they were the next of kin, but then you have this domestic partnership that has been going on for 10 years, which makes the partner now the next of kin versus the child or the adult child. So that's why it's just so important to have it written on paper, notarized in the cases that it needs to be notarized. There are some documents here in Texas that they don't necessarily require a notary, they just need two disinterested witnesses. And disinterested is simply two individuals that have no benefit in the document. They're not related by blood or marriage, they have no financial benefit or any type of benefit in the document.
I love that term, disinterested parties,
Interesting.
disinterested
Yeah.
witnesses. Okay, well, I have to tell you, thank you so, so much for being here. This has been such a rich discussion.
Thank you.
And y'all really appreciate everything you've been putting in the chats. It's felt like such a great conversation. Um, Tracy, I wonder, could you share, as also as a caregiver to your mom, just some general tips and strategies, lessons you've learned that you might want to impart to other caregivers? Because, we have a lot of folks that are caregiving actively or anticipate caregiving
Yes,
on this show, and we just try to bring the honesty and all the tools to the table to help people stay sane, stay well, and take care of their loved ones while not burning themselves out. So,
definitely.
anything you want to share on that front?
Absolutely. The first and foremost, um, the first thing that I would say to anyone that is caregiving is give yourself grace. Give yourself plenty of grace. Understand that you are going to make mistakes. This thing is literally trial and error. Some decisions you make are going to be great, and some decisions you're going to make are going to be not so great. But all in all, at the end of the day, give yourself grace and definitely communicate your needs. Don't allow anyone to assume or anticipate what your needs are. Be very specific in what your needs are. For example, with my aunt, because I do run a business as well as I'm the primary caregiver for my mother. I have tasked my aunt at times to simply go and do a grocery pickup for me. Hey, I made all the groceries online. I just don't want to pay the grocery fee. So do me a favor, go pick up the groceries, and then when you get them at the house, sit with your sister for what I'm saying. So
Yes.
that's one thing. Be very specific in what your needs are. Um, and then also accept the fact and accept the reality that you have people out here that will say all the cliches. Oh, give us a call if you need us and everything. And when you need them, they're not around. That's okay. All of us are out here living life. Just be proactive, find tools and resources that assist you. Every state has a department area on agency, aging on department area on agency. Excuse me, I always get tongue tied with that.
We
Which
call them the triple A's.
yes, which provides great resources on how to seek respite, how to locate a nursing home, how to find an elder care attorney, how to find a nursing home. So you don't have to be by yourself. You don't have to feel like that, you've taken on this huge iceberg by yourself. Give yourself grace, speak and anticipate your needs, and do as much research as you can. The It's no sense in reinventing the wheel when the wheel has already been created for us. My journey is going to look a lot different from your journey, but at the end of the day, we're all in the battle together, and we have to continue on.
Oh, Tracy, thank you so much.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for being here. Thank you for those words of wisdom and inspiration. And hopefully, we can have you back as a guest sometime later this year.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. When you sign off, would you mind putting your handle and any
Sure.
contact info you want to share in the chat if folks want to reach out to you?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Take
Thank you.
care, friend.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate you so much.
No problem. Bye bye.
All right, everyone, that brings us to the end of our time together. Thank you for a wonderful session. It's so great to be back with you. If you're looking for continued inspiration, I believe in our bio, you can find the registration for Comparing Notes, which happens tomorrow night, 6 p.m. to 7:30 Central. It's a leadership circle, a peer support circle for folks who are LGBTQ plus, Black and Brown, Indigenous, folks of color. It's a space for us to talk about leadership, to develop our skills, to nurture that dream of getting a new job, starting your own company, building your hobby or your art. It's a group of folks from different industries and different backgrounds coming together to support each other. And so tomorrow, our conversation is all about motivation. And we would love, love, love to see you there. So thank you again to Tracy of Caregiving with Me for being here and being such a wonderful and dynamic guest. And we will see you all next week. Take good care.